Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Atlantic Association, it's a pleasure to welcome you here in Nieuwsport. How likely or unlikely is a second term for Donald Trump? And more in general, what is the state of the Union? How is America doing? And more particularly, how is Middle America doing? These questions are in line with the expertise of our two distinguished speakers. First, please welcome Laila Frank.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for coming out. We all know who this is, right? This is The Godfather. The opening scene is a room outside of the wedding of his daughter, and Mr. Buenasera is coming in and he's asking Don for a favor. And he says, I believe in America. America has brought me my wealth, and I've raised my daughter in an American way. With this, he basically shows us the identity of America, or a story of America that has been valid for a long while. You can come to America as an immigrant, you can make your fortune on capitalism, you can be a good citizen, and you can have a good life. That story is not really valid anymore. And America is sort of looking for a new story, or at least parts of America are looking for that story. Our people are looking for a story to believe in again. And Donald Trump gave America that story in 2016. So what I'm going to do with you is sort of meander through America and have you meet some of the people I met during my travels. But I will start with this funky bunch. I met them in Ohio, and they were campaigning for Donald Trump in October of 2016. And they're still laughing here, but a little further into the conversation, when I asked her why this election was so important to her, she started crying, and she said, this is about America, this is about the country that once was there and now is not. And then she said, at one time we were a great nation, and we could take care of everybody, we could take care of the world, and now we cannot even take care of ourselves anymore. Which is in a way a very compassionate and heartbreaking phrase, but it also is a very eloquent way of putting America first. This man I met in a very different place, the southern desert of California, the desert of Southern California, and he's a barman, he's 84, and he's a little deaf, which is very inconvenient if you want to order a drink. And his bar is near a lake. After he bought it, there was a big pesticide crisis, and because of all the stuff that the farmers used, the lake died out, and now he's stuck with this bar at age 84, and there's not a lot he can do. He voted Republican because he said, we need the jobs, and I don't have them right now. This is a different story. This is Motique Alston, and I met her on the streets of Venice Beach in LA. She works 60 hours a week, and still she can't pay for the rent. And this is why she voted Democrat. So they're all indicators of the American dream, the economic part of it that just doesn't work anymore. And you can see that people, for that reason, either vote Democrat or Republican, but it's a very essential thing that's going on in America. Then there's the other thing that doesn't work for everybody anymore. This is the funky crowd I met in Phoenix, Arizona, and they're mostly left-wing activists, but they got a lot of Republican people to the voting booth. They campaigned to put an initiative on the ballot to ask for transparency of campaign donations over $1,000. Basically meaning we want to know who gave the money. They got it on the ballot, and 91% of all Phoenix people voted in favor of it. I believe these are the two big things that the elections are going to be about, and that if you want to win the elections, you need to have an answer to that. But where does it leave us? Because, well, Donald Trump has an answer to it. He's just framing the whole thing as capitalism versus socialism, which is a darn smart strategy, because it's a very strong label. And the question then is, what is the answer of the Democrats? There's quite a lot of campaigns about healthcare, and you could say that's a ridiculous socialist issue and you will never win on that. But look at that, they did, for example, in Arizona. But you can actually run on a democratic socialist issue and get very close. And then there's something else, which to me is interesting. More people find themselves being independent. So it means they really say we vote on issues. So where does it leave us? I believe that we still have the faint idea that Donald Trump is a passing event and everything will get better. But I think, honestly, that is not. And I believe that he has a really fair chance of winning. But in the end, it's never about the politician. It's always about what the politician reflects and how he or she gets into the gut, into the heart, into the values of the voters. So I'm really curious what's going to happen, because it's all about them in the end. And that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Laila. We'll follow up on your observations later on. But after watching The Godfather, let's now turn to an important consigliere from Ohio. Please welcome Matt Meyer.
Who was here last year when I spoke in Amsterdam? Anybody? Raise your hand a little bit. Okay, so Trump's still here, shockingly, right? So Trump has had 2 years in office, a little over 2 years. If you are someone who is in the middle bit, we call that flyover country, right? Everybody goes to New York and LA, but they skip the rest of the country. Trump's doing well. Historic tax reform that has spurred the economy on. GDP is doing well, 3%. Unemployment is at record lows for Americans, but more importantly, it also has for African Americans, Hispanic Americans, disabled Americans, Americans without a college degree. On foreign policy, those of us think it's great what he's doing. We love that he has scrambled the eggs fairly thoroughly. We think he's made NATO stronger by getting European countries to agree to push up their budgets to 2%. However, if you think about what's going on in America to start shaping kind of the next 2 years and going into re-elect, there are some things I think that are underway. The right is becoming righter, the left is becoming lefter, and the middle is minimizing. So there's also a political realignment underway in America. And what I mean by that is, what you saw in 2016 and you saw in your walks around the country is the blue-collar union Democrat went with Trump. But those voters were dissatisfied with what the Democratic Party had promised or done or not done. And so this shift is a little bit of the suburbs versus the cities, right? The cities are where the Democrats are strong, and the suburbs and rural areas are where the Republicans are stronger, except one group, which I'll talk about in a minute. This is going to be probably the most controversial thing I'm going to say tonight, that you're going to say there's no way that's true. Minorities may be up for grab in 2020. Now, if you don't know, historically, African Americans at the presidential level usually vote between 90 and 92% Democrat. So the Republican gets 8 to 10% in the election from African Americans across the country. Hispanics are about 70%, and Jewish Americans are about 60%. I do think that there is an opportunity that Donald Trump could actually get more of the African American vote, more of the Hispanic vote, and more of the Jewish vote than any Republican has in modern times. The unemployment rate for African Americans is at record lows. They are getting jobs, their wages are going up. The other thing is, Donald Trump, with Congress, enacted criminal justice reform. Criminal justice has had a huge impact on the African American communities, and he is the guy who got that done and signed a bill that's going to essentially make America's criminal justice system less harsh against African Americans sitting in jail and the folks that are dealing with some of the issues. And let me be clear, all Trump needs to get is 87-13 instead of 92-8. Same thing with the Hispanic community. Hispanic community has record unemployment. Same concept. They look around, they say, things are going pretty well. I like this. And I will also tell you, you will laugh at this, but please do, they like the wall. Why? Guess who takes their jobs before anybody else? Illegal migrant workers coming across that border. And then the Jewish vote. Why do I say that? Do you guys follow this stuff close enough to know that there were 2 Muslims elected to Congress this past 2018? And have you heard about the one? The one just can't stop saying anti-Semitic things. And so much so that, don't believe me, I believe tomorrow Nancy Pelosi is going to put a resolution on the floor that condemns anti-Semitism in Congress. So those things you have to watch very carefully over the coming 2 years and see if I am proven right or if I will grovel and say, I'm sorry, I was so wrong. The one group that is the problem for Donald Trump are suburban white women. They don't like that tone. They don't like the Twitter. They don't like the attacks. Who, by the way, love the wall and they like the emergency declaration to fund the wall. You'll notice since his State of the Union, he has had a very different tone. And the Dems have become the gift that keeps giving. Whether it's the anti-Semitic congresswoman from Minnesota, whether it's Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who can't stop talking, and I love whenever she talks because she says stuff that middle America goes, wow, are you serious about that? And so when you think about it, these issues, right, as she said, this is we are tagging this as the socialism versus, you guys will say nationalism, we'll call it patriotism. But I'll take that fight any day because we're going to win that easily. Americans don't like socialism at all. I will say to you with reasonable certainty that Trump is likely to win 24 states already. Don't care, going to win it. That's about 204 electoral votes. You need 270 to win. Whoever the Democrat is, and I don't care who it is, they're going to win 20 states for about 229 electoral votes. And that leaves about 7 states that are going to be the battleground states. Arizona, Florida, Michigan, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. Those 7 states are the ones you should watch because that will tell you more clearly what's going to happen on election night than anything else you read or hear in that period of time. So in the last 100 years, only 3 presidents didn't win a second term. All 3 lost because of economic conditions, right? Hoover, the Great Depression, Carter, the malaise, and Bush 41, it's the economy stupid. So, despite what you hear or read here, Trump is doing very well, and he is on a course for re-election. Could be more than the 304 electoral votes he got the last time. And the key to stopping him, if you want to know what the key to stopping him is, you better hope for a recession. Thank you.
Okay, Matt, thank you very much. Let me first ask you to comment on one of Laila's observations. She said a lot of Americans, maybe the majority of Americans, both on the left and on the right, feel that the system, the political system, is broken.
I think she's right on both the left and the right. I think Trump answered a call for a large swath of Americans, right? They felt that the elite in both parties, right, the Republican and Democrat, didn't really care about them. And I think Trump came in and said, right, look, I'm this billionaire from New York and all, but I know what you guys want. I'm going to fight for you guys, and I think people believe it. And the other thing is, and I know it's so hard sometimes for Europeans to get the appeal of the brash tone stuff that he does, but there's a lot of us that love that he kicks the heck out of the media.
Let me ask you, Laila, to comment on something that Matt said. He said, well, the middle is becoming a less populated place in American politics. Do you agree with that?
Do I agree with that? I think I do. Identity in terms of politics is very strong. You either hate the president or you love him. You're a fierce Democrat or you're a fierce. So, in those terms, the middle ground has sort of evaporated and became less and less. And you said something interesting. You said people turn to the sides more, and they might. There's a hierarchy in which the way people identify. You identify as a, what were you saying?
Conservative. Conservative,
then a Republican, and then maybe you register as a Republican. So America is a complicated beast, and the way people identify is a complicated measure in itself. So it would be too easy to say it's either this or that, and then you have the stuff in the middle, because people are complicated creatures as well. But I feel that the strong identity you used to have as being a proud Republican, and that gave you a certain set of values, and being a proud Democrat, and it gave you a certain set of values, and you knew who your crowd was, that is evaporating. So the middle ground is becoming messier and mixed.
I would like to know what your favorite president would do in case of a recession.
If there is a recession between now and the election, I will tell you with a reasonable certainty, Donald Trump will do whatever he has to do to make it as painless and short as possible so that it doesn't undermine his reelection. If it happens thereafter, you know, it will be ugly because So Americans now hold more personal debt than any time in history. When we hit, all those bills are going to come due, right? And that's going to create problems for the American consumer.
You both seem to exclude the possibility that any of the investigations, any of the inquiries bring down Trump. But is that really true? And if not, what would you possibly think would be the bring about Trump's loss?
Short of some kind of, and I can't even imagine what it would be, right? I mean, that we all just don't know happened. Yeah, the Republicans are going to be behind Trump.
Unless there's going to be a real red hot smoking gun, Donald Trump is going to be fine.
If there's no access to a clear line between what is real or what is convenient and governmentally endorsed news, as it in many other less free parts of the world, how do we ensure that people are informed and can vote on that basis?
The idea that you could have 90% negative coverage of Trump in his first 2 years in office compared to 85% positive of Barack Obama in his first 2 years in office, nobody who's serious can say that that doesn't mean there is not media bias. And that is why people love when Donald Trump goes after fake news.
She's asking for what's the solution.
And
And
I'm telling you
honestly,
what
the way
solution
we're
is.
talking
Fair
about
coverage.
it, we are.
Fair coverage, that's
yeah,
it.
and then we get to framing. What is fair coverage?
50% negative, 50% positive for a Republican, 50% negative, 50% for positive for a Democrat. That would be fair coverage. When the studies show that, we've solved the problem. Until then,
no, it's not.
bias.
That's not fair coverage. If a Democrat is an asshole and he screws up, and then it can be 90%, 100%
Okay,
negative coverage.
so your hypothesis then is every Republican president is an asshole
No,
that does
it's
negative,
not.
and every but that's what you're saying, because you can't
no,
explain
it's
Obama
not.
to Trump. You can't explain the differential unless there's
Can I-
bias in the system. That's all I'm trying to say is
I
be
think
fair.
we've
That's all I
accomplished
want.
being part of the problem.
Can
Be
I-
fair.
Okay. One of the difficult things of media is that both space and time are limited, and our time is up. So
Thank you, everybody.
let me close with a quote from Winston Churchill. He said, "Politics is the ability to foretell what's going to happen tomorrow, next week, next month, and next year, and to have the ability afterwards to explain why it didn't happen." Now, there are two possibilities. Either you are excellent analyst and things are going to happen as you foretold us, or you are very good politicians. Thank you very
We'll see
much.
in 2 years.
And thank you, audience,
Thank
for
you,
your
everybody.
attention.
Thank you.
Okay.
That was great.
Good.